Hello friends, welcome back from our Bitcoin technical analysis. I'm your pal Rocky Outcrop, and we're going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin prices in just a second here. So thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the family if this is your first video. And what are the current prices of Bitcoin? Well, the current price is 6,715, you can see up there. And why have I got the 4-hour chart open, you might be asking? Because normally we look at things on the 24-hour chart, and normally we've got a whole load of junk on there as well, and it looks awful. So so why am I treating you to a fairly relatively clean screen and looking at the 4-hour chart here? Well, in yesterday's video, in the comments below, Diane, hi Diane, and I spoke about how we were feeling bullish in and around when the prices were in around here where I'm pointing just now, and then the prices came on up to the 7,200 price point, and then came all the way back down. Subsequently had a 10% move to the downside there, kind of going from our highs at 7,200 or so down to the lows there. You can see that a 9.5% move to the downside, and that was fairly sort of interesting price action. So what was Diane and I talking about? Diane asked me at the time, are you feeling bullish now? And I said, well, essentially up until about 7,200 at the time, and then thereafter not so much, don't really know, and then left it up to her to say how the day would play out for the end of the day. But asked the question, will we start seeing things like a 4-hour head and shoulders on the 4-hour chart here? So this is the 4-hour chart, and I thought we'd start by looking at it and saying, is that theory that I kind of just postulated at the time perhaps real? And of course I was just looking at it on my mobile phone in the small screen and replying to comments on that as well, so I wasn't doing any sort of real TA at the time. And what does this look like though? Well, overall, there are hallmarks here to be taken into consideration. And could this be a left shoulder area here, a head area here, and a right shoulder area here, putting a neckline in around about where the prices came down to? Let's just call it 6,700 for argument's sake, is roughly where that neckline would be. And what would be the result if there was a move off the back of this thing? Just for theory, just for speculation's benefit here. Let's take a rough measuring stick. I suppose it's probably not. It probably could go further than that. Who knows? But let's stick it in roughly there, and then let's see what that lines up with in terms of our thinking in the past. Will these lines and what and have you? So here we have. It could potentially go down as far as 6,900 or so, 6,000, depending on where you draw it in at and how big you want to have it at in terms of this sort of measured move aspect. But it takes us down to the 6,000 area flat. So there you go from the commenter to the day before yesterday, and on the way we'd be going past 6,250, 6,450 area, the 200 simple coming in here at 6,400, and there's quite a few question marks on the way. So even if this is a head and shoulders, am I looking to sort of looking at that as a particular thing that I'd want to sort of make a trade off the back of? Not necessarily. I'm kind of more interested right now in terms of how the price would handle it if it came down to 6,400, or if indeed this concept can just be sort of disregarded. Let's take a look at around a couple of different time frames before you start committing to things and say, well, how about the 24-hour time frame? What does that look like? And over here in the 24-hour time frame, if you were looking for a reversal type concept with the head and shoulders coming in, you could get a really big effort drawn on here, which would last how long in total? If this was the left shoulder over here and we kept going over to where it could maybe end up at, then you're looking at maybe coming up towards 50 bars, which is quite a sort of which is a good target to have in terms of the time spent drawing a pattern on the charts. In terms of the daily in crypto anyway, I'd go a bit further in terms of traditional markets, but there you go. And so could this end up being one in the bigger term? Well, should the prices come down here and do that in around the 6,000 area, the 5,800 area, then we'll have to keep our eye out for that. But you could imagine that happening if the 4-hour sort of head and shoulder type time frame thing worked out and it came down to these targets down below, then you could be looking at having some sort of framework like that on the go. Of course, we can also be looking as well and saying that we could be setting in a higher low on the daily time frame, really anywhere down as far as 5,900. So that would give you the impetus for the to go back up, create this right shoulder, or indeed not create it. And it would be at this around about this time frame over here where you'd be looking at that if that was the case, towards the 25th of April maybe, to try and figure that sort of thing out at that time. But that's all very, very, very much getting ahead of ourselves, and whatnot. But it doesn't look, you couldn't, in terms of the daily chart, there could be certain different shapes here. If this was the head and shoulders that we're looking at in the 4 hours just here, which it is, then you could be looking down towards the 6,400 area just off the back of this. Right, whatever, let's not get too fascinated with it. It was just a little chat, I don't need to get too fascinated with it. In terms of the 12 hours, you're also looking at the same sort of concept as well here, with this coming in, but doesn't really have a right shoulder yet. It's just a wick here, I would say, maybe not. But if the prices came up towards that 7,000 again, then came on down, then you'd maybe start thinking that maybe you've got a 12-hour head and shoulder. You can see the left shoulder being in about that 7,000 area. So in terms of the sort of like, why are we talking about that at all? Well, that's all sort of bearishy type talk. And why would you be having that bearishy type talk with regards to head and shoulders? Well, head and shoulders would be a reversal pattern against an upward trend move, as you can see here, this upward trend in section. So it's just kind of keeping an eye out for things like, we are bullish in the sense that we have upward side targets. We haven't created in lower lows really quite yet, for instance, compared to over here. We're still getting higher lows and higher highs on most of the time frames here that we're looking at, and lots of different aspects about this, like in terms of being above 236 Fibonacci retracements and having come up to reasonable areas for profit taking to have happened, and then come back down looking for a higher low. We've got all this sort of bullish stuff. So the reason I'm just talking about the bearish side of things is because it helps keep our head on our shoulders, and not get too carried away. Really, that's just all that we're sort of kind of, that's just why this is going on. And why do I feel like that really at the minute as well? Because I'm quite curious as to how things will go over the next wee while in terms of the economic stimulus versus the reality on the ground in terms of the global economics, really. Anyhow, so yeah, and where does this place us here? This is the 12-hour chart, and you can see this, the moving averages, by the way, as it happens here, the 21 and it's 6,800 and 6,900, and the 50 down here at 6,670 or so, 6,666. But this is the 12-hour. We don't look at that too much. Let's go back over to the 24. See, we've got the 21 in here, but that's 6,830. So we've spoken about however many times in the last, since March, over here, I don't know, even maybe it's back as far as, I can't remember, you tell me, you've been watching along with the videos. Thanks very much, by the way, like, comment, subscribe, really appreciate every single last one of you. But we talk about this 6,850 numbers being important, right? And it still is, and it still is for such a big variety of reasons, really. And as we're looking at the prices here at 6,722, well, the question it becomes, and with this wick down here at 6,541, is 6,541, close enough to have any targets down below where we would have needed to have gone to find support to turn around, or not? Is it in around this area here, which is good enough for us in terms of resistance and support to create a higher low? Is it? And will we come back up towards the 21 and that 6,850 level again and start thinking about things yet again and around that pivot point? Or will we continue down the way? And if we were to continue down the way, then we can have a quick Fibonacci drawn on there to get the idea about where we could be going. Now, of course, this is stuff that I realise I've talked about in a lot of episodes, but a lot of people come to the channel new all the time, and won't have seen this in the previous episodes necessarily. But you've got this 6,666 area, you could say, here as being your first sort of target in terms of creating a Fibonacci, a valid Fibonacci retracement. So you could look towards the next one down here, the 382 level at 6,250 or so, as being your next target afterwards, should the prices open and close below that 666 level. So shall we call that the crucial number for now? And it's the sort of the upside crucial number for now, 6,850. I think we probably should look at that as being the case. Let's take a look at the oscillators and see. I'm really starting to dislike the amount of noise I've got on this chart here. Maybe I'll just go over to something else to look at them for a second or two. There's less noise. There's noise everywhere. Everywhere I go, always take the weather with you. Right, whatever. So in terms of the oscillators, this being low, this is a 4 hour. Let's go up to the 24 hour and see if we've got any divergence showing up on that. So this is our high recently, and this is our previous highs in somewhere between these two, and this here shows us that we've got no divergences there, but we do on the MACD, if you can remember from all the previous episodes. And there's this question as well as whether or not this would constitute bearish divergence too that we're seeing on the DMI, and how this is shaping up currently is still the upward trend on this daily thing. The ADX sort of showing you the strength of the trend has dropped right below the 20 level. The positive and negative sort of aspects of that are converging. So those are all sort of quite those two here are quite bearish, and these two here, well, they're just doing their thing. We come up here past the neutral zone and checked it. Do we have a sort of head and shoulders type idea here on the RSI? Just a small one here that would be like that 4-hour one that we're looking at. And could we form part of a bigger head and shoulders here if we came down, then up, then down again on the RSI? And you can do patterns on RSI and stuff like that as well. So, something to be kind of bearing in mind over the next wee while. Now, of course, I think that's going to have to do us for this episode. If we look down to the lower time frames, like for this divergence, if this is a downward trend, let's just call it that, because we've got our high, lower, low, lower high, lower low, and currently things are not divergent there on that front. On the RSI, you can see if but this, looking at the lows here, this is a previous low, and this is RSI does seem to be divergent, bullishly divergent. RSI is bullishly divergent on the 4-hour time frame if that is a downward trend, which it really isn't, really. And then the stochastics, we've got this here versus this here, so yeah, that's bullishly divergent. Okay, so we can say for this small 4-hour downward trend on the 4-hour time frame, we're experiencing bullish divergence currently, and so let's just see how things kind of shape around. That's the sort of the context of the market that we're looking at currently. Overall, go back over to Bitfinex, see if there's anything interesting here in this in terms of our already identified areas of support and resistance, and there isn't necessarily. So yeah, that's it. We're between these two levels currently. So we've got the 6666. If we go below that, then I'm looking towards 6400. I think is a realistic target there after that, fairly much, because this would be all kind of continuing on the way, unless the 4-hour bullish divergence that's showing up on a couple of these oscillators. Did I do this one right or wrong? Yeah, this is slightly up. Anyway, you can check that on your own charts. It looks like it might just have a touch of it there, and yeah, so we can see if this turns into anything at all for us over a smaller time frame. Although overall, I'm feeling like that it's not going that great, and until I wouldn't be happy to say anything positive about the prices at all until we saw ourselves above 6,850 again, where you can see like there's just a whole bunch of moving averages in this area. The 382 here of this Fibonacci retracement, is that right? Yeah. And this channel that we'd have to be breaking back into again, and at the same time as doing that, you've got the 50 simple moving average up there, and you've got the 233 exponential moving average right there, all at that time. So until the prices really are above that 7,000 level again, then I'm not going to start thinking about being bullish, and until they've gone again above 7,200, then we're not putting in a higher high yet. And we've got this line in here at 7,450 that we want to see the prices go up above there. And then I'd be feeling more bullish about things at that point. And currently I'm sort of remaining open to the idea of potentially going down the way, and I'm looking at those numbers that I've identified: 6666, 6450, 6250. I'm not a financial advisor, none of this is financial advice, and to the upside 6850, 7070, and 7200 and 7458, I think were the numbers that I'd said there just for now. So kind of in that area. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really like it when you like the video, and I really subscribe to the idea of you subscribing to this channel. And if I had any comment to make about your comments, I'd say go ahead and make them. And if there's one thing left for me to share with you, it would be that it's a good idea to share this video. So thanks so much. I'll catch you in the next episode.